Good evening, everyone. This is Menina, your girl with Legacy BookBar, and welcome to Legacy BookBar Sip and Chat. Tonight is our second episode in our podcast series, and tonight I have with me author A.A. Lewis. I met Arthur Lewis probably the end of 2019 when I just happened to put out some feelers for any authors that were looking to have their books in my online bookstore. She was probably one of the few that was like, hey, I'm interested. What do I need to do? She was super nice. She has been on this ride with me since, let's say, end of December into January, and she has been riding with us. So thank you so much for joining our Sip and Chat, Arthur Lewis.
Hey, I am so happy to be here. So appreciative of all that you're doing for independent authors and the book community. And so happy to have you in my life. Like, I think of you as a sister. So
yes. Oh, that's good. My daughter is talking to me and not realizing that I'm on a live chat.
Is there a link?
Yes, tell Grandma she can go to the Legacy BookBar page.
Okay,
she can find the chat.
She said, go to the Legacy BookBar page.
I'm so sorry. So, yes, I mean, I remember like pre-COVID, we were talking, every 2 weeks? You were just like, some ideas. You would just text and say, hey, how's it going? And that meant so much to me that you would reach out. You even let me have a vent session because I was like, I don't know, this doesn't make sense. And is this, I don't know, I don't think they're gonna like it. And you're like, you'll be fine.
Well, it's a process. Everything is a process. And I think we live in this world where everything needs to be instant. And when we don't see the results that we think we should have right away, we are really hard on ourselves, which is good because that's motivation for us to continue to be better. But no, like we've all been there. And if we haven't, we will be. And I'm just happy to be a listening ear because Lord knows I've been in those situations and someone's had to talk me off the ledge. So
yes. So I am so excited to talk with you. I know it seems like I need like a girl session first before we start. Well, let's see. Let's tell the people. Well, if you've been following Legacy BookBar, you know that we had Arthur Lewis as part of our book club back in, I want to say, April. And when I say that book club took up the entire 3 hours because we had so much to talk about. We were so close to actually talking about all 3 books, even though we were only doing
we were only. Everyone had questions.
Everyone had questions, and tell your girlfriends that were on. I'm definitely still going to do a book club for you guys, and we're going to do all 3 books at one time because people need to know how that series ends. Absolutely. So while I have you here, let's talk about you. So tell the world, tell Legacy BookBar fans, tell us about yourself and what made you become an author.
Well, first of all, I'm A.A. Lewis, for those of you who don't know. I started my writing career, and I say seriously, about 3 years ago. I've always been very creative. So I have a creative background. I was a theater major my entire life, went to high school and college for theater, and somehow got away from what I was really passionate about, which was the creative side of me. So, you grow up, you have a family, the 9 to 5 is the corporate world. And I found myself 3 years ago being an empty nester. And then, my excuse for not writing was, well, I have a family to take care of. And I had boys, so they were always into sports. And they kept us very active. And I would just say, I don't have the time.
Right.
And lo and behold, I'm an empty nester. And my husband one day said, when are you going to write those books? And I said, well, I don't have time. And he was like, you have nothing but time now because we don't have little boys to run after. You have grown men.
Yes.
So it's okay for you to take a moment to yourself to start writing. So 3 years ago is when it started. And I just think that's my phone giving you feedback. So I'll turn that off.
Okay.
So 3 years ago we started, and I haven't looked back. The 716 was always going to be the first series I knew I was going to write. And then what I started to do was think about other stories that I wanted to create. Because while the 716, and we'll get into this, takes place in the 90s, I wanted to start there to sort of show where I began, where my creativeness really flourished. To the woman I am now is completely different. So there's so many dimensions to me as far as writing is concerned. So I'm taking this journey. And the 716 is just the beginning. There'll be a couple more books coming out in the next couple months.
Yes.
And even the continuation of the 716 series. And we'll get into that too. But this is who I am. And for anyone who knows me, I consider myself like everybody's big sister. I want to have fun. Right. I want you to, if you meet me out at a book event, I'm very approachable. We can talk. And then also for those who aspire to be writers, because I've traveled this journey, made a lot of really great connections, being able to share that journey and experience to hopefully help you, become a writer or use your creativity to inspire other people.
Well, I definitely think so, because, I follow you on all social media, and you, my dear, have an amazing following. So if there are any aspiring authors out there that are looking to get in the urban fiction or into any genre, you are definitely one to follow. So I hope they are listening, or anyone that's joined will share the podcast so they can learn the tricks of the trade and learn from the best. Give me 1 second. I'm so sorry. Turn the TV off in the living room. Get your brother. Thank you. Yes.
The joys of family. It is what it is.
I'm not there at that empty nest. I have a 6-year-old and an 18-year-old. And it's great. Love it. It's awesome. So let's see. Well, let's talk about the 716 series, because we have the 3 books here. People can see we have book 1, book 2, and book 3. So let's talk about your books, because that's what everyone is here for. So let's tell us about it. So before, I know for me, when I got your books, I was like, 716. I'm sure that's an area code. Where is it?
Right.
Let's tell you where it is. So tell everyone where is 716.
Yeah, no, the 716 is the area code for Buffalo, New York, which is where I'm from. I'm originally from Buffalo, New York. Okay. So it's entitled the 716 to represent the inner city. So just by the title, don't get discouraged, because it takes place in Buffalo. I wrote about what I knew, which is the city of Buffalo at that time. But it can be any urban city across America. That's the one cool thing about this book, is that it's going to resonate with anyone, no matter where you're from, based on the content, based on the musical influences, and just the relatability of the characters. Like, you don't have to be from Buffalo, New York to enjoy this read.
That is true. But I must say this, because like I said, I didn't know. I was like, 716, don't know where that is. But it made me, as I'm reading, like kind of miss the 90s, because it was an entire 90s feel. And I know when we did the book club, I said, I think the favorite parts for me throughout the book was each chapter was a 90s song. And whatever was going on in that chapter was reminiscent of the song. So they were hand in hand, and I thought that was so brilliantly done. I loved it.
Thank you. You know what? I always knew these characters. So, 20 years of not being creative, right? I'm stuck in corporate America. These characters would talk to me, and I go, one day I'm going to write, and, this song is so like appropriate for you. So when I started writing, I was listening to a lot of 90s music just to get into the vibe of the era.
Okay.
And lo and behold, I had realized that, the first song in the first chapter influenced the actions of that character. Okay. And then the second chapter, same thing with that character, and so on and so forth. That I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to name, these chapters after these songs. So in doing that, like two things happened. One, I had to do a lot of homework and research because some characters, depending on where they're at in the storyline, like I had a song for them. And a lot of times it wasn't a song that I particularly liked. In fact, there's quite a few songs in the book series that I could not stand them in the 90s. Like, hated that song, wouldn't even listen to it. But it was appropriate for that character and that time in their journey. So I had to do some homework. I had to make sure that the songs fit the character and the storyline. So let me just say this. There are a lot of artists from the late 80s, 90s to the early 2000s that I love that did not make the book. Doesn't mean that I favorite one over the other. And we'll get into that too, but because I noticed that I did. But I have a favorite. I have a favorite artist from that period. So of course they're going to show up in the book, but doesn't mean that I didn't want to use them. They just weren't appropriate. Like that particular songs didn't fit the character, didn't fit the storyline. So I went with what made sense. And in doing so, I learned that there's a collaborative effort, just the same way that music evolves, the artist evolves, these characters evolved. So there's a lot of R&B. There's a lot of hip hop and then rap. And then, as I take you through the journey of the 90s, the music changed. So we went from a playful vibe in book one. If you think about the music that was laid out in the early 90s, it was very playful. It was very collaborative because you had a lot of R&B and rap, hip hop collaborations with artists. So you're going to see that. But that's also to the nature of the characters because they were very playful and young. And then as they progress in the storyline, just like the decade of the 90s, the music started to take on a different vibe, mid 90s, late 90s. The characters also changed. So you get that influence. And I tried to keep it as true to the musical storyline as I possibly could with the characters so that you could see, the evolution of music in that decade, but also the evolution of the characters. So I hope from book one to book three, you get to see that growth and maturity in these characters as the music changes as well.
Yes, I totally thought so. I want to say book two, when they kind of grew up a little bit and the circumstances changed a little bit, got a little dark, but the music got a little dark. And then book three, it was like not as dark, but they was rolling through. I have never seen anyone able to do that. And of course, when I first read it, I was like, oh, this is nice. She's got the songs with the chapters. And then when we were talking about it and I went back and I did the reread, I was like, this really does go with it. And it just made me appreciate the story more because now I understood where the music was coming from for the book. So I thought that was so cool. So
I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Well, you know how they say music is it's the storyline of our lives. It tells our stories. So much happens in our lives that revolves around music. Like you can equate like a happy situation, a sad, occurrence, how you were feeling at some point when you heard a song. And my intent was not only to take you on a journey with these characters, but also to get you in touch with your memories that are connected to some of these songs.
Absolutely.
Like, I think the first time, for most of us, the first time you heard Mary J. Blige, like the 411 album, like we can remember where we were when that album dropped, who our friends were, what we were doing. There's a connection. There's an emotional connection. There's a memory that's involved. And I was hoping that you get to feel that interaction with yourself, but also with the characters, because the music directly does tell you what's going on with the characters, where they're at in their life, how they're feeling, or what situation that they're currently in. So it's telling their story, but I wanted it to connect with you also. I wanted you to have that emotional journey with yourself through the music.
Gotcha. Okay. So we have some comments. Let's see what they are. Let's see. I have Eva Jones that says, "Hey there." I have Karen. She says, "Hello, ladies." Karen was at the book club for us.
Hi,
We did
Karen.
back in April. She said the 716 series was so good.
Thank you.
Yes. Gerald DeAndre, said that is so creative. This is when you were talking about the chapters were the music and how the music songs were the chapters. He is actually also an author of Legacy BookBar, and we will be talking about his book later on in the broadcast, and he will actually get his own book of the month in October. So thank you, Gerald, so much for tuning in. Karen said, "Music is the soundtrack of our lives." Absolutely.
Yes.
I remember my divorce from my first husband. I think I blew out Tony Braxton's CD because it was like that was what I was going through at that time, and I think I had that on repeat for like 2.5 years. And then it made me think like, okay, I can now change the CD now. Now we're good now.
But even still, when you hear those songs, it takes you back to that emotional state that you were in. So, and there's nothing wrong with reminiscing about where I've been, because look at where I'm at now.
Exactly.
And I think that's the journey that music takes us on, is that it's okay to have that self-reflective moment, because that's what makes us grow and become a better version of ourselves. And the fact that we get to live our lives through music, like someone else felt that pain, someone else had that experience, that connection, tells us that we're not alone.
Absolutely.
So,
I totally agree. So let's tell the people about book 1, the 716 Love and Consequences. So let's talk about this. Book 1 was I'm a fan of roller coasters. And this book was like, take you on a journey and we're just flowing along and it's great. And it's like, oh, wait, well, turn the wheel. Wait a minute. But it was so good. It was such a page turner for me anyway. So those that have not yet purchased the book from Legacy BookBar, let's tell them about it. So you tell us about your creative work here.
Yeah. No, so the 716, the first book is entitled Love and Consequences. It is about 4 best friends and their journey to find love, and how sometimes, especially when we're young, we tend to gravitate towards relationships that are not necessarily healthy for us. And in doing so, sometimes there's consequences, good and bad, that come with loving certain individuals. So you have these 4 best friends.
Mm-hmm.
You got Anika, you got Yaz, Ayana, and Monica. How could I forget Monica? You have them, and they could not be any more different. Like they're the purest form of friendship because it makes no sense. But they each play a role in this group. And as the storyline goes on, we get to see what happens as certain things happen to friends and how their like either disappearance in the group affects what happens in these ladies' lives.
Absolutely.
And also, you know, who sometimes, you know, let me back up. For me, a lot of times when you have that core group of friends, you all sort of know your roles. Like you got the mama bear, you got the one crazy friend, you have the one shy friend, and you have that one sassy friend. And at some point, I think we all play that role for each other. And it's very interesting, the dynamics of these 4 young ladies, what they bring to the table for each other, and how they love each other unconditionally through these relationships that they are going through. So these 4 ladies take you on this journey. And of course, you know, we hear a lot from the women's point of view on these relationships in book 1, which I thought was important because I'm a woman. So I want to speak from the voice of women in relationships. How, you know, we know sometimes loving the bad guy or the bad boy is not the right move, but the heart does what the heart wants.
Absolutely.
And we expect that there's going to be some consequences behind that. You know, would be naive of us if we don't, you know, continue with caution. And that's the part that these ladies have to learn. So in book 1, we get the introduction to the main 4 characters. And later on in book 1, we also get introduced to the men in their lives. So we get Q, we get Jay, we get Mario somewhat, and then we get, oh my goodness, I lost my names. But yes, oh, it just escaped me. I'm so bad. But anyway, we get introduced to the men. And then we start to hear their point of view. So a lot of the music in book 1 is geared towards the women and their relationships. So you get old school Mary. You get a lot of hip hop influences and soft hip hop. You get, let me turn this. You get Diggable Planets. I just turned into a page. There's some Freddie Jackson. You get, who else? You get Father MC, like Main Source. You get Guy. You get all of these early, like Jodeci, Changing Faces. You get the reggae influence that happened in the 90s. So you get Patra and the mention of very other reggae stars at that time. So when you think of that early 90s music, that's what you're going to hear in this book. And again, each chapter named after a song. So what I did to make it easy for everyone is that I actually created the playlist. So if you do read the book and you want the playlist, hit me up on social media. I will be more happy to send you the link, because after a couple readers said, girl, this is a really good soundtrack. And I was like, yeah, I know.
That was the soundtrack of my life. I needed that. Yeah.
So I still jam to it, like often. Like I would put it on just to clean the house. I would put it on when I exercise. It's just a really dope like soundtrack. So I said, okay, I'm gonna create the soundtrack, put it out there for anyone who reads it. And everyone says, you know, I get my glass of wine, or, you know, I get my Hennessy, and I put in, you know, I play it on my playlist, and then I read the chapter, and it brings a whole nother dimension to the book, which I was like, oh, y'all get deep on me. Because I was like, it's a good soundtrack. And then they were like, and they let it like sink in and they digest. And some of the discussions I've had, I'm like, wow, you guys are really deep because I didn't even see that connection. So it's altering also how I view the connection to the music, to the characters. So when I say like the book one is a starter, think early 90s music, think how playful that part of the 90s was, and then that's what you're going to get out of these characters. And you're right, it takes you on an emotional roller coaster because you don't know what's going to happen, but things start to change. And without giving anything away, like some of these people couple up, and in doing so, it kind of alters the relationships and some of the, I guess, the goals and focuses of these women because of the love that they have for the men that are in their lives. Right. So book one, 716 Love and Consequences. Hit me up if you need any of the playlists. Because again, I think I saw more people, especially the men, the male readers. They think it's going to be such a girly book. And I'm not like, no. I have more men readers, I think, and fans of the book and the music than almost, it might even be equal, like 50-50, because the men will come up and be like, I didn't see that coming, but I love the use of this song. And I'll be like, you read? And they'll be like, yes. They were like, the soundtrack is dope. Like it took me back to an era where to my generation, music mattered. It had a message, not only was it a good beat, but we just loved like an entire album, not just a song. So 716 Love and Consequences is where you start. And then things pick up.
Let me just tell you that I think this is one of your biggest fans, Daryl Lewis, has said, my girl Monica, Q, J, and Dade. You were trying to think that you were trying to remember the last name.
Yes.
And he said, I'm still upset. I totally know why he's upset. I get it. I feel you too, Daryl. I'm upset.
I'm sorry, but not sorry.
Right. And then looks like we have another fan another watcher. It says, I'm waiting on the next book, sis.
So everybody's waiting on the next book. So let me just tell you, I'm working on the second part of the 716.
Okay.
I can't give it away just yet. We got to get through the first three books, and then I'll give you a sneak peek as to what's going on in the next phase of the 716.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's talk about book two a little bit. So after book one just throws you off the roller coaster with no seatbelt on, and you weren't prepared, what was hey Dondra, how much are the books? I'm so bad, I do apologize. Off the top, I don't remember, but you can go to my website at www.legacybookbar and get all 3 books on the website. And if you get it today, those shop codes will handle that shipping and handling. So there you go. And Lisa Brown said, call me tomorrow, sis. So I think that's for you.
Yeah, Lisa, I will call you tomorrow.
I think that's for you. All right. So book 2. Why you do me like that? That's like, why you do me like that?
Listen, book 2, because I didn't think people would forgive me after book 1. Let's just put it that way. Book 2. So first of all, somebody like another famous author, like one of my fans, Terry Woods, grabbed the book and was like, sis. She was like, what? Like, she was like, first of all, she was like, I think it was thick as hell. And she was like, I felt like you was giving it away. And she was like, but then I read it. And she was like, and I'm mad at you. So to hear that compliment from her, I was like, oh my God, like, thank you. Thank you. So yes, book 2 is thick as hell, but there's so much there's so much happening in this book. And I think the unique part of the book is that like you're hearing in like as it's happening, what's going on with each of these characters. It takes you on a serious emotional roller coaster ride from beginning to end. So I want to start with like the first song, because me and my husband, we were like, this is hilarious. I said, I'm writing book 2. Anika, one of, the unofficial leader of this female group, right, is in the grocery store. And I just can't find that right song, like that puts you in the mind of being in the grocery store. Now, for anyone who knows me and my husband, we are music heads, but he is a music head. So right off the top of his head, I said, she's in a grocery store. He said, What a Fool Believes by the Doobie Brothers. And I said, shut up. And he was like, it plays in the grocery store all the time. And then I thought to myself, it does. And I had already written the chapter. It was so appropriate. I was just like, she is right now in like a state of oblivion. And I was like, she just does it like in her own little bubble, her own little world, just living life. So it was such an appropriate song. But people were like, when you open it up and you see that that's the song that kicks off book 2, you're like, what? Doobie Brothers, What a Fool Believes. Once you hear it and you read that chapter, it kind of sets the tone for the rest of the book.
Yes,
and
I said, who is this and why would she give me the first chapter of this? This makes no sense. And then when I listened to it, I said, oh.
It totally made sense.
Totally.
So I got to give him the shout out for, totally got to give him the shout out for connecting that dot for me, because when I reflect back, it does really set the tone for this whole book. And it was the one song that I would not have been looking for, like the Doobie Brothers. And if you grew up in a household, you know who the Doobie Brothers are from your parents. But it was not something that was supposed to be like the 90s, especially in the inner city, talking about, my characters in a hip hop R&B book. So that was the aha moment for me. But in book 2, book 1, you heard a lot from the female perspective on these relationships. But then in book 2, I give you the male's point of view and, how they recognize that loving these women have caused consequences for them. And some of them, can I right these wrongs? Can I change? Will I change for the sake of love? And we start to hear the men own up to that. We get to hear how they're dealing with their decisions, how these women are impacting or influencing, how they're starting to move. So you have this weird chemistry going on with all of these characters. And like I said, another roller coaster ride, and it's going to take you on some high highs and some very low lows. But that's a good thing, because you have the music there to connect you back to the characters, to the storyline, but also taking you on that emotional journey of your own with the music that was selected. So just to give you a taste of the music that's in this book. So think mid 90s to late 90s. The sound of the music becomes a little bit more edgier. It's definitely a little darker. So we went from playful, R&B, hip hop, to a definite rap culture, because there's a difference to me. So you got, of course, Nas is in here. So I do have a confession. Nas is in all 3 books. He happens to be one of my favorite artists of all time. So you get to hear that plus I'm from New York. So when you rep New York, you know, you go to the city, you definitely are like either you are a Nas fan, you're a Jay-Z fan, you're an East Coast fan. So you'll hear a lot of that influence in the book. But just to give you a taste of some of the songs that I use to guide these characters on the journey. I got New York State of Mind. You got Flavor in Your Ear remix. I got some Adina Howard in here, Freak Like Me. I'm from New York. Act Like We Know. You got If I Rule the World, Power, Money, Respect. You got Mary J in here again. You got some of everybody. I don't think I left anyone out who didn't have a major influence. You got some Redman in here. You know, I got some real hitter songs. Now, the thing with choosing the songs for book 2, it's not always the most popular song that we heard on the radio. It may have been that hidden gem that, you know, you had to flip over the CD or, you know, the tape deck and say, you know, that was one of my favorite songs on that album, the love that it deserved. Well, it's getting love now because it made a connection with the characters. And I'm going to tell you, I think the musical selection in book 2 literally will take you about 3.5, 4 hours to listen to all of the music that's mentioned in book 2. So that's just how deep we got with the characters. But yeah, that emotional roller coaster is definitely happening with these characters. And from going back to speaking on behalf of the men, one thing that I loved about book 2 and a lot of the feedback that I've gotten from my male readers is just how accurate, you know, I was in depicting the men in these relationships, which I thought was going to be probably the hardest thing. And even when maybe I didn't have the language right, I would go back to my husband and say, hey, in the 90s, this, or did you guys say this? Because I'm not speaking from my point of view. I feel like this is something he would say. So coach me to how men, you know, would have said this phrase. So I had a good, you know, reference in my husband, to make sure that I got that dialogue from the men just right.
Gotcha. I must say, when I was reading, you know, because prior, my favorite genre is not necessarily urban fiction, right? I've always said this. My favorite, my go-to is romance, always has been. But urban fiction, I know, has a huge stereotype on how their stories or how their characters are written. And I must say that even though your series is urban fiction, it wasn't like so graphic or descriptive that it's like, what? I don't want to read this anymore. Like, I didn't live this life. I can't relate to this. But in reading your stories, I could say, oh, well, I might not have lived this, but it was creatively descriptive, if that's a good terminology. Yeah. It was really, really descriptive, but in a creative way that it wasn't vulgar. It wasn't overly vulgar, but it was just like, if you lived in the streets or you hung in the streets, this was your reality.
Right.
And I thought that was so cool that made me say, well, maybe I should give it another try, because there are probably authors, and I know there are authors that write in this genre that are going to write in that similar style that Arthur Lewis does. So I say that to say, if there's anyone that doesn't, or probably like me, that urban fiction isn't their go-to, start with this series, because the music alone will probably make you love the story as you're reading it. You will have a huge nostalgia if you're a person that grew up in the 90s and you are reading this book. So That's my plug. So
No,
go get it.
thank you. No, well, I'm going to tell you something. So I've had a couple book reviewers. I know a few individuals who've reached out to me and literally said, like, I don't do urban fiction. I just don't. I think it's taken a wrong turn. I don't like the graphic content of it. What I'm going to say is that, like, it's not for the faint of heart. Like, I am very descriptive in some of the all of the sex scenes. I'm not going to say some of them. It is what it is.
It's real life.
I grew up knowing the streets. I was not in the streets like these characters. So there's a misconception that I'm one of these, 4 women. I am not. Neither are any of the ladies that I, were friends with back in the day. What I will say is that I know these characters because once you live in the inner city, and you don't have to live per se in the hood, but if you live in an inner city setting, you've seen these characters throughout your life.
Absolutely.
And I was one of those individuals where I would say, I wonder what their life is really like. So if I knew the drug dealers, I knew who the drug dealers were. And I go, wow, like they look like they live a glamorous life, but what if it's not so glamorous outside of what I can see? And I think a lot of those influences, to come up with these characters to say, it looks like life is good on the outside, but when it comes to, how they manage their relationships and interactions with other individuals, they're struggling just like everybody else.
Absolutely.
And, just because it's in an urban setting doesn't mean that they're less human.
Absolutely.
So I think I found a way to humanize these characters.
Absolutely.
I think that it is a romance novel.
Yes.
I think it is a romance.
Yes, the way the couples became was their own love story within what they were fighting for within the story. So I will say that you do get a little urban fiction and you do get a little romance because that was, even though they were in the streets, they loved and they loved hard. And, happily ever after. Maybe not, but you gotta read the book and find out.
Read the book and find out.
Read the book and find out.
Thing that happily ever after. Like, I think we need to examine exactly what that term actually means for certain individuals, because, as much as we're pulling for all of these couples to be together, the definition of what that needs to look like gets redefined by these couples.
Absolutely.
So it's not always the outcome we wanted them to have, but it's a realistic outcome. Like, not all relationships end the way we want them to.
Yeah.
I brought some clarity around what relationships and the definition of relationships look like for a lot of these characters.
Totally agree. I know once we got to the end, I was already mad at book 1, and then I got to book 3. And I was like, I'm mad again. Like, come on. But once I thought about it, I realized that was needed with certain characters. And I couldn't be mad anymore because it was just because I wanted it for them and their lives and where they were going. It didn't need to be that way anymore.
So we're totally trying not to give this away to anyone.
No, we're so trying. This is why me and Arthur Lewis have decided that for those that have read the entire series, we are going to do a book club of all 3 series, because it is so hard when it's like you don't want to tell all the secrets, but you want to talk about the book. So really soon, we are going to have okay, if you've purchased books 1 through 3 and you have read them, hop on, and this is what we're going to do, because we have to talk about this. I have questions.
Yes. No, you know what? Everybody wants to jump from book 1 to 3. Like, they want to go to, like, you took us from here to here.
Right.
And I'm like, but that person hasn't read all of the books. We can't just jump around like that.
So hard. So us readers that have read all 3 are going to have a club for us. because I know if you are like me, you have to talk about some things. You have to get some things off your chest because we had a roller coaster. We was every emoji reading this series, and I have to talk about it because I can't be the only one feeling this way. So
you know what? No, you weren't. My husband, because there were times where I was just like, you're not gonna read the book. You're gonna get it when everybody else gets the book, because I want your honest, opinion. Right. And to me, he's other than myself, my strongest, critic, but my biggest fan. Right. And when he read the book, like I knew exactly where he was at because I heard him stomp up the stairs, and I was like, oh, and he was like, and I was like, it's okay, breathe, it's okay. I knew exactly where he was in the book, and he was like, how could you? He was like, if you do this, I'm gonna stop reading your books. You cannot take me on a journey like this. And at that moment, I thought to myself, I got him. If I know that I'll get that reaction from him, that there's other readers who have had that similar reaction. Mm-hmm. And sure as day, that people hit me up in my inbox and they'll be like, you have a lot of nerve. And I'll be like, yeah. And then I realize that they're talking about the book. And I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, I'm sorry. But listen, when you live, in the streets, mm-hmm. and like you live in the drug culture, like things are gonna happen. And some of these books, I think, give us a happy ending to drug life. Listen, there's only two things that I know are for certain when you live that lifestyle: death
or jail.
Mm-hmm. Like there are very few retired drug dealers. Like I've never heard of a drug dealer having a 401k. So the happily ever after is unrealistic.
True. Very true.
That train of thought, like if you've read all three books, the happily ever after is unrealistic. Yes. At some point, life will catch up with you. And that was just that piece where I'm like, I'm sorry I've taken you on these emotional roller coasters, but it needed to be done, one, to explain some of the actions of the characters.
Right.
So you know why they're moving the way that they're moving and their storyline has adjusted. But also, that reflective piece, like, I made some bad choices in my life. Like, had I continued down this path, maybe, I'd found myself in similar situations as these young ladies or men.
Right.
But more importantly, I think we've all loved someone that was not healthy for us, both male and female. So there's a lot of that self-reflective piece where you get to look back and say, you know what, I'm happy that I survived that. Or I'm happy I had growth from that relationship.
Absolutely.
This character is definitely going through it. And I hope that, they find a way to manage through that.
Yes. So I'm going to jump to the comments really quickly. They are hilarious. Lisa Brown said, sis, you were keeping it real. The books were excellent. Lisa also said, most definitely the love that Anika had for Q was some real shit. Very true. She also said, definitely a conversation that needs to happen. So I think she is definitely on board with a book club with all three books so we can talk about some stuff. and then your husband said, I almost divorced her. I totally know where he was going. Oh,
I think he did.
Oh,
I listen. When he stormed up those stairs, I knew exactly where he was, and I thought to myself, he is gonna be so upset with me.
Yeah. People, share with your friends, share with your family this podcast. If you are looking for a good series, a good book that's gonna take you on a complete journey, please direct them to this podcast. The website will be featured throughout the podcast. I'll talk about it a little bit more, but this is a series you want to get into, and then you're going to want to join the book club when we talk about all three books, but don't come to the book club and you only read book one because we're going to drop spoilers. So
you're going to be
ready. We have been waiting for this, and we're going to drop some spoilers. So just be ready for that. So the third book in the series. Okay, we didn't.
My favorite book out of the whole series.
So when we talked about the book club, we talked about how, you know, some of us had a favorite character in book 1, and then by book 3 came around, we had a different favorite character. So I did a reread, right? And we both have our books. Book 3, I did the reread, right? Because you know, I like to read, and then I said, okay, I want to be ready for this call. I need to make sure I have my stuff ready, even though it's not a book club. I had to be ready. And I've now since changed my favorite from book 1.
Everybody has.
I said, first I was like, am I allowed to do this? Can I change a favorite after I've already read the series? And then I said, sure you can. You can do what you want. Why not? And it was, you know, let's read the books, because, you know, as the owner of Legacy, I read all of the books that come through. But also as the fan, a new book, right? So then let's get ready for the book club. So it's like I'm like probably reading these books at least twice going into the book club. So then we had the book club, and we were like probably 2 out of all the book clubs I've had literally took all 3 hours of the book club. And I said, go back and reread. Like, just, you know, everything now, go in and read it like you have never read it before. And I have changed my favorite now. And I think I slept on a character that I should not have slept on. And I'm mad that I did that. I'm not going to tell you. You know who I'm talking about.
I know who you're talking about.
I'm not going to tell anybody who my favorite was, and then I changed it. You have to buy the book and read the book, and then we can discuss the characters. But it was a diamond in the rough that we should not have slept on. It wasn't that she was the quiet character, but she was not. She was not the quiet character by no means. But I think we just slept on her. At least I did. I know in the book club, some people that was their ride or die no matter what. That was who they were rolling with, because they saw some things that I did not see. So then I went back. Daryl, stop telling all the secrets.
We're gonna ban you from discussions.
Right. So you telling the secrets.
So let me stop you right there. Yes, you can change who your favorite character is. This is the thing. Go back to who you were even like 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. It's not the same person you are right now. Mm-hmm. So think about those characters. In the beginning, you know, confession time. I said, I think I'm more like Anika, right? Okay. So, and I have a lot of diehard Anika fans. They were like, I'm Anika. I love the way she moves. Like, I'm Team Anika. Like, I'm for her and I'm for Q. And I love their relationship because it's that ride or die. I think she brings a softness to him that he would be lacking, that compassion piece. So, Team Anika. First, when I first wrote the book and I knew this character, I said, Team Anika, right? Then I was like, But I also like Ayana. I like that she's the mother figure for the group. Right. In her role that she played with that friendship. Like, I was like, well, I'm kind of like her too. Right. Then you got Yaz, and there's a wild side to all of us. Like, it's funny because sometimes on social media, you'll see that meme, which girlfriend are you? Right. The one who will pop off in a minute, ready to fight, cuss somebody out on your behalf, and always got your back. I think we all have done that at some point in time for our friends. Maybe not as aggressive. Come to the defense. Right. Our friends, our sisters. And then you have Monica, who is the unofficial wild child of this group. And when you read the books, you will know what I'm talking about. And I was just like, she's the least relatable to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm writing her and I know her story. So I'm like, she's the least. Like I did wild stuff, but I was no Monica.
Right.
By the end of the book, even the middle of the book, I was just like, Anika got on my nerves. these changes where I was like, but then I said to myself, oh my goodness, you've been that naive in some situations.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I talk about that one song, What a Fool Believes. I was like, oh, you fit the song at some point in your life. Like, so I got to a point where I couldn't stand her. And I was more looking at Yaz. I was like, yeah, she a go-getter. I like her hardness. You know, there's still a little softness to her, but I love that rough exterior that she brings. And she kind of it's like a passive dominance when it comes to her and Jay and their relationship. So I love that. But by the time I got to book 3, like I had clarity. And I'm not going to say I was never like team this person. What I will say is that I fully understood her as a woman, as someone of importance within a friendship or a group of women, that sisterhood. I understood exactly what it was that she brought to them ladies. I thought that, so just a comparison, I thought one character was very judgmental. So it opened my eyes because I was just like, you've been judgmental in your group of friends. Like maybe not vocally, but you thought that.
Right.
Or you think that about your friends. And that character sort of was like that. I've also been the character that was ready to jump to the defense of others and sometimes not as aggressive as they wanted me to. So that relatability with Yaz is there. But when it came to Monica, I wasn't quite sure, like, because I'm not that wild child like that. Like, how do I, like, what's my connectivity to her? And by book 3, I knew these women. I knew, like, my role that they play, or the role that they played in my life, and who I was at different intervals in my life to individuals as it relates to those characters. So you can change who you like. You can certainly change who you like, because like I said, this book is going to take you on an emotional roller coaster. You're going to love to hate some of these characters, and you're going to love these characters. You might just have a love-hate relationship with some of them. But you're going to figure out that sometimes the team or the woman that you resonated with in the beginning of the series is not the person that you are right now. Like you start off thinking, I love this character, but by the end of the book, you're like, you know what? I really, really like love this character because they were misunderstood and I didn't give them enough credit. So I commend you for wanting to change, because you were a diehard that person.
I was like, no, man, that's my girl. I'm rolling with her. You couldn't tell me anything. And then I was like, well, you kind of grew up a little bit. So let's, and I looked at, you know, I got married very young, got divorced super young, and then remarried again. And I looked at my life and all of my life experiences. And I think at like 5-year intervals, I think I was each character at one point. Not as wild as Monica though, but I had my moments.
Aside from, like, so we're not going to give Monica a bad name, guys. No. This is what I want you to know is that when we say wild child, she's the wild child of the group. Correct. But there's some honesty, some pure honesty that she brings to this group.
Absolutely.
And you have to admire that, because a lot of times we say, I'm keeping it 100, right? I'm real. I'm this and I'm that. I'm just I'm a down girl.
Right.
We all say that. Monica lives that.
That was her motto. Yeah.
That's the part, is that she's very upfront about who she is in an unapologetic way. Yes. So when you say I'm unapologetically me, and you don't care what other people think about you, Monica lives that. And not many of us can say, like we move that way. We might say it and be intentional about how we go about the behaviors to like influence that and project that onto others. But honestly, deep down inside, we're all striving to have a lot of the characteristics that she has. So, wild child she may be, but it's that point of honesty that she brings to this group that I think at some point we all need to hear, but at some point we've also played those roles.
Absolutely. So chat box is going nuts. Yes, Dondra, there is a promotion going on. Legacy Book Bar has summer shop codes through the end of the month. So if you were looking to purchase the 3-book series, the shop codes are listed once you create your cart. So you will see it. I know it's a shop code. If you spend, I want to say $30, and then it's a shop code if you spend over $50. So if you are looking to purchase this series, please go to www.legacybookbar.com. Thank you so much for tuning in, Dondra. And a little side note, Dondra Harper is my Empowered Women in Business International Sisters in our organization here in Baltimore. Thank you so much, sis, for joining in. I see my chapter president, Nakia Harvey. She said, I love this. This is an amazing conversation. Your husband said he can't help it, but he won't do it again. Don't kick him out the conversation. Okay, we'll let you stay. It's fine. He also said, in reference to Monica, I think she was the realest, and that makes her truly free. I totally agree with that. 1,000%. Karen is also still on the listening in, and she said, Monica, take me as I am. Absolutely. No cut card.
Unapologetic.
That was her. I know myself and can be and am a confident person in where I stand and what I want to do and where I'm looking to go. But I could still use like this much of Monica's confidence in moving in this, because she had it in abundance. And she was my new favorite. I will say she was and I think it took for that reread and once I did the reread and I watched how she moved, and I was like, every female, I will say, if you have a group of your ladies, everyone needs a Monica. And when you read the series, come back to this podcast, and at an hour and 2 minutes, every girl, every set of friends needs a Monica. Okay?
Every last one of us.
Every last. Absolutely.
So this is the thing. So book 3, the 716 Ladies First, is the shortest of the 3 books as far as page content, but it is the most powerful of the whole series.
Right.
My issue when I read series is, do the characters evolve? Is there some growth? Like, or are they still the same people from book 1? Correct. And I think book 3 answers that for us. Like, we've seen them when they were young. By the time we get to book 3, there's a level of maturity that has happened with these ladies.
Absolutely.
They are owning their space and who they are. They have accepted these consequences, good and bad, that have happened in their lives. Absolutely. And we have adjusted accordingly. And that's the piece, like when we go through life and we watch our own journey, like we hope we mature. We hope there's some accountability to who we are and what we bring to our table of friends. Right. This is what happens with these ladies. I love that. I love that it shows the true sense of sisterhood, because throughout all of this, they never left each other. Right. And that's something that's almost rare today, especially when I look at younger women and that sisterhood. Like, I'll be your friend for a moment,
For
or I'll
like
friend
this
until
season,
you
and
do
that's it.
something for me. What I'm talking about is a sisterhood, a bond that is unbreakable. And from day one of this series to the end, I wanted to stay true to that. I wanted to show that we can come from different backgrounds, that we could all be different, but we could all love each other, be supportive of each other, and grow, within ourselves, but also grow as a group and maintain that level of bond. Yes. But when it came to Monica, I wasn't quite sure.
Wait, sorry.
Okay.
Answering too many things on listening. Like I had questions. People were asking questions in multiple places, so I want to make sure I'm able to get all the questions. It seems like the most question is book 4. That's been a repeated question.
Let me put this out there. Yes, there's not a book 4. So it's not a book 4 because the characters as we know them ended in book 3. Okay. And what I mean by that is that it is now time for the next generation of the 716 to make an appearance. So we've come to the end. 716, ladies first, is the end of these characters as we know them. Okay. So if you fell in love with them, you keep it right there, because the next generation, that influence is pretty much about, and see, I can't give it away. It's about the next generation. Right. So you got to get through the book to understand what I'm talking about the next generation. Correct. So let me put it this way. The first 716 series took place in the 90s. I was having a conversation with my youngest son, who's 21. Okay. He said, Mom, but music didn't stop in the 90s. He's a music head too. Okay. So he goes, what about today's music? What about what's happening today? And in my mind, I instantly said, the names of the players have changed, but the game is still there. So I'm bringing the 716 current day. So it kicks off in 2018. So this is some things that I had to do to prepare for this. When we talk about the next generation, it's a new generation of music. And in my household, we listen to old school. We listen to old school anything. So we go like early 2000s and back. We go 70s, 80s, 90s. We don't listen to today's music. So it forced me to listen to today's music. And it's a culture where I was just like, I don't get it. Before I was reluctant. I don't want to hear it. It all sounds the same. What's the message? Well, and being open to doing the 716, the next generation, which is what it's going to be called. Right. I had to be open to listening to today's music. Okay. I had to become familiar with who the artists were, and knowing that the next generation would be influenced by some of this music. I had to take it all in. And you'll be happy to know that, yes, there are some halfway decent songs out here. There are some artists that are making waves that, I normally would not have given any credit nor listened to. But that's my son's little nod and encouragement, like, hey, what about my music? You're not going to do a storyline about my music? It's brought me to that point where I'm like, So me and my husband luckily had an opportunity all of 2018 on several car rides, going to different events and visiting and book events and signings and stuff all over the country. Listen to a lot of today's music. Okay. And you'll be happy to know the 716 continues. But characters that we fell in love with in the first series do make appearances, but it's going to be all about the younger generation. Because again, when you live a street lifestyle, like, do you really think that there's longevity? Like, how long can you hold on to that? At some point, names and new faces on the street. So we have
Mm,
to continue that logic of what street life looks like. So
right.
characters we fell in love with, yes, they'll make appearances. And there's a
Mhm.
really great plot line that's going to take you on another roller coaster ride.
Mm.
But it's all geared around that younger generation.
Okay. Lisa, you and Daryl are determined to tell the secrets. You guys are killing me. But no, they are cracking me up. With this chat in the box. Dondra, I see your thing. It won't let you use the promotion codes. I will call you after the chat and see what happens. And then I will come back and make sure. But those shop codes should be good until September 30th. So again, if those that want to purchase the series, please go to www.legacybookbar.com to purchase the 716 book series. So now that my mom Karen said, I can't believe you found good music for the new generation.
You know what? And I was so reluctant, Karen. I was just like, how am I going to do this? Because I am old school. Like you throw anything in from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, and I know I'm there. Listening to today's music was a challenge. But then I had to think, and I have young men. So my son's age ranges are from 30 to 21. So I've heard their music. And much like my parents didn't understand my music, I don't claim to understand theirs. What I did was I said, I'm going to be open to listening to it. Right. And in doing so, I found myself bopping to a few songs.
Okay.
And then I was like, I channeled my inner ratchetness of my ages from the ages of 19 to 21 and was like, yeah, okay, I could get into this. It took hours of driving in the car for us to be like, okay, that wasn't too bad. Right. Or as dumb as the beat is, meaning good, it was a good beat. Like, what was the lyrical content? And even the R&B songs of today are not what they were, years ago. So they're not. I don't care how many remixes you guys do. They are not.
They're not.
No. So I had to give it a chance. And in doing so, I was just like, it fits the character. Right. And with mental notes and go, yeah, we're gonna use this song. I'm gonna use this song. Okay. Maybe I should listen to a little bit more of their album. And I was able to find some hidden gems in there that I was just like, I think it relates to the mindset of young individuals today. And if I'm gonna write about that, I had to kind of immerse myself in that culture of today. Rap in the hip hop scene. And so I'm forever tainted, y'all. I'm forever tainted because now I have some of these songs on repeat that I can't believe I play in my car because I always said, we're never listening to your music in my car. And here I am preparing for the next part of the 716 series. And I've given it a chance and I'm bopping to it. So forgive me, everybody.
Oh, wow. So I hope everyone that is listening today has just gotten some really, really good information about the 716 series. So now that we've talked about the books, let's talk about the authors. I think I got away from it a little bit, but I want to get people to know who you are. So in this whole writing process of this world and writing, what's the one thing you know now that you might have wished you knew when you first started?
That I can be vulnerable.
Oh, okay.
And I say that because normally I'm a very private person. Okay. So I've written several books and published and all this other great things, but it was like one piece. There's no follow-up. Like it was just, I wanted to write, I submitted it, and great, you published it. Being an author meant that I had to step out of my comfort zone and own this creative space that I live in, which is sometimes difficult for other people to understand.
Mm.
In my world, so in the 9 to 5, I'm corporate. Like I'm that person, you know, in the big office behind the big desk making decisions, and it's very black and white for me. And I lived in that space for so long that I forgot how freeing being creative is and why I needed that outlet. But in doing so, I had to be okay with exposing that part of myself. I had to be okay that sometimes I'm going to write things that, you know, don't resonate with individuals.
Right.
I had to be okay saying it's okay for me to use this language. It's okay for me to let down my guard and let people see me, because again, very private. So I, you know, at first I didn't want any connection to who I was with this author, you know, that I created. And now I own that space. I'm okay being me. And that's that part of Monica that I really wanted to embody with
I get it.
who you are.
Right.
So what
I get it.
this journey is that it's okay for me to show up and be me. It's okay for my creativity to express life and people's journey, my journey. So I love that.
I think that's probably the best answer I'll probably get for that question. I love it. And I think being vulnerable is a good trait to have. I like that. It for me anyway, it makes me work a little bit harder, because you know that's not a space that you always want to be in. So you just work a little bit harder. I like that.
Let me tell you. I'm sorry. I like my privacy. I don't want people to know who I am. It was that comfort zone that limited me. So, and I didn't want to be limited anymore. I wanted to be able to express myself and live in my truth, which is I'm a very creative individual. And I wanted that. Like I yearned, like deep down inside, I kept saying one day. And I finally had that opportunity to just say, here I am. So I owe this journey to discovering that part of me.
Gotcha. I love it. What advice would you give someone pursuing a career as an author?
Do it. Just like literally, it's that simple. Do it. Because listen, 20 years ago, I wasted 20 years of my life. So I went from 22 years of being creative, right?
Right.
To 20 years of being stagnant, like nothing. What a waste of talent. I worried about what will people think. Well, no one will read it. And I got away from the reason why I enjoyed being creative. It wasn't to make money. It wasn't to please other individuals. It was because it was truly who I was. So imagine living in that box that you place yourself in. When you limit yourself to that, I think you do a disservice to readers and to yourself. You have to do it. If I had started this journey 20 years ago, it's no telling where I'd be in my literary. Just do it. No hesitation. Don't think about making money. Don't think about who's going to like it, who's going to read it. The first person that you have to please is yourself. So if you think that there's a story in you, write it. Because all of us have a story. Write it. And then do it so that you can be happy with what you've done. Because if you're happy with your product, somebody else will be happy with it too. And even if one person reads it, you've done what you intended to do. That was to be a writer. So don't hesitate. Pick up that pen and paper, get your laptop out, get your computer, get your tablet, and just do it. Don't let that derail you from experiencing that part of who you are and what that dream is.
I love it. So I love that. Just do it. And the author the guest I had last week, author Serendipity, when I asked her that question, she said, write that book. And I love that. So again, if you are sharing this podcast with your family and friends, you have two authors that are telling you right now, write it, do it today, because the day is going to pass no matter what.
Right.
So why not do what your heart is really telling you to do? So now, like Lisa Brown is saying in the comments, now is your time. So write that book. Start today. I love it.
And this is a good thing. Everyone's going to tell you at some point, just do it. Write the book. Like, you got to get that story out of you. And I always go back to, I didn't do this for money. I didn't. I did it because I needed a creative outlet again. And I wanted to hear this story. I wanted to get these characters out of my mind, out of my head, out of my ear, and onto paper. And the fact that other people are willing to take this journey with me is amazing. So I did it because I just wanted to. And don't let it take you 20 years, people. Just go ahead and do it.
I hear you. So everyone that knows, if they're watching, sharing, they know they can purchase the books from Legacy BookBar. If fans wanted to follow you on social media, where can they find you?
On Facebook, I'm author A.A. Lewis. Okay. On IG, I'm A_A_Lewis 716. And you can email me at lewisaa716 at gmail.com. If you want the playlist, you can hit me up on IG and I will tag you in it and send it your way. You can instant message me and I'll get you the playlist. There's also, I have a website out there, authoraaLewis.com. You can find out all my upcoming events, any book releases. There's a blog out there. There's plenty of ways for us to stay connected. And I'll make sure that my information's on the website for Legacy BookBar so that you can stay in touch with me.
So I tried to throw in your Facebook, Instagram, and your website information. You can go in and add some more comments. We get off the broadcast if anybody wants to follow. And I hope I didn't mess up the names. I think I got them correctly, but just go back in and double check and then you can add those. So I always end the segment with my signature question. And so the question is, what do you want your legacy to be?
Oh, good question. That's a two-parter for me.
Okay.
Because as a woman, I think that we wear many hats.
Right.
The most important hat that I wear is for my family. So I'm a wife and I'm a mother. And my legacy, when it pertains to my family, is that I'm gifting them the ability to be free, to be who you are, to live in your truth, whatever that might be, and be unapologetic about that. And I think that this whole course has taught me that it's okay to do that. So every day I wake up living in my truth. Right. I am who I am. I'm unapologetic about it right now, too. You either love me or you don't. And it's okay. What I do think, though, is that we're going to do it with a level of respect. So with my sons and my husband, that space, being free to be who you are, it's okay. And to own it, because you don't owe anyone an explanation of who you are. So my legacy to them is that it's okay to live in that space. Because so many of us don't get that opportunity to do that, to do the career that you want, to make choices as far as who you love, to just be free and be be okay with that. Like, that's my legacy for them. As an author, I want my legacy to be that I'm not defined by the title urban fiction.
Okay.
Because in the upcoming books that I'll be writing outside of the 716 series, I've tapped into different levels of urban fiction. So while most people think urban fiction, they automatically think street literature.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm not one-dimensional. There's different levels and complex levels of my creativity. So I don't want to be defined as just being an urban literature, fiction literature street novelist.
Mhm.
I want to just be an author, whatever that means. I want you to see me not just in one version of urban literature, because it's so diverse. I'm capable of living in all of that space and giving you a unique journey with different characters that hopefully give you an opportunity to see life differently. And I would hope that would be my legacy.
That was like the best answer. I literally almost shed a tear, and I was like, wait, you're on camera. I think that was perfect. I think that was the best answer that you could possibly give. I love that so much. I love my signature question. Let me just say, I never know what, and I'm like you, I research everything. So when I was like, all right, I'm going to try doing a podcast. Don't know what I'm going to do, who I'm going to talk to, where we go. I don't know. I'm like, what do you even ask on a podcast? So I researched questions, and everything that I looked in, everyone said, you have to have a signature question. So I'm like, a signature question? And okay. But then I thought about, what's the name of the store? What's the name of your business, and why did you do that? So what do you want your legacy to be is the best question for Legacy Book Bar, and why Legacy Book Bar is here today. So I think your answer is superb.
I love the question. So I'm going to tell you this. I'm happy that you didn't email me that question beforehand, because I don't want to rehearse that. Like, I feel like that was, you helped me self-discover what. I'm like, good question. And then, I'm like, this is what, and I've always said, this is who I am. This is what I hope to gain from this journey as an author.
Yes. Everyone, I want to say thank you so much for Arthur Lewis being here tonight. She is a dear, dear friend to Legacy Book Bar. She has entrusted me with her work. I am holding her books hostage, but the books that are sent to me, I love them and I take care of them like they are my babies, because you guys entrust me, a startup company, basically a stranger, to do what they say they are going to do with your work. And I hope that, as we've been in this journey since February, that you have seen that I am working diligently, and the people here in Baltimore are loving your series here.
Listen, I gotta tell you something.
Yes.
So I have family that live in the DC, Baltimore, Virginia area. And a few people have said, hey, I think I've seen your book, like at a book pop-up. And I was like, oh, that's my girl. Like, so I'm like, yeah, no, it's good. It's good. She's supposed to do that, right? But the interesting thing was, one of my cousins said, hey, like, I was at work and I happened to notice a few of the girls had your book. And he said, I had to convince them that I was your cousin. He was like, but I wanted to tell you, they're getting it locally. And I was like, oh yeah, that's my girl. So when you tag me in those posts, I'd be like all over it. I'd be like, thank you. Like, I love the support. Yeah. But it's amazing what you're doing, because when I think of the Baltimore, DC, Virginia area, I'm not making the connection for the 716. I'm truly not. I'm always in awe of the people who are reading this book. And as it branches out, like, so for those of you who don't know, the series has been completed almost a year now. And people everywhere are picking it up. It's one of those, it's a slept on series, but once you get into it, it's like it becomes almost cult-ish. You know, there's a cult following behind it, which is great, you know, because I love having discussions and the fact that people are reading the book. But in Maryland, it's you, sis. It is you. It is what you're doing. And it's not just for me, it's for all the authors that you've invited to participate in your legacy. And I think that's so powerful. One, because you're a African-American female, business owner, entrepreneur, but it's your love of books and what you're doing for independent authors. That is so unique. And if I could give you that love, it would be like this hug right here, because I don't think I'd have that following in your area without the support and the hard work that you're doing. So thank you. Like,
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
It means so much to me. Like, I love this friendship. I love the sisterhood. Absolutely. And I love the support that you've shown me. So thank you.
Thank you so much, so much. So, guys, again, share with your friends, share with your family. If you are in the Baltimore area, the 716 series will be in stock at the local pop-up here in White Marsh Mall in Nottingham, Maryland tomorrow from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. So if you want to come in person and come see me, I will be on the second floor in front of Bath and Body Works, and you can come and see me there, see all of the other books from all the other wonderful authors that will be there in stock. If you see it, you buy it, you walk home with your book, and you can have a wonderful Saturday afternoon, evening with a new book by one of these fabulous independent authors. If you don't know really, like, oh, what's Legacy Book Bar? It's an online bookstore that caters to, but not necessarily exclusive, but it caters to self-published authors. As author Lewis mentioned, I am an avid reader. But it was getting to the point where I personally couldn't find a new author or new series or new genre. And I'm like, where is everybody? And it was like, oh, go to Amazon. And, you know, Amazon is great. Don't get me wrong. I got probably 1,000 books on my Kindle. But then I was missing that interaction with authors and fan clubs. And I said, I want a book. I want to support an author. I want a physical book. I want a bookstore. And after months and months of research, I said, well, you know, you want a bookstore, create one. So here, you know, Legacy Book Bar launched November of 2019. And then in-stock books were ready for sale and purchase February of 2020. Then insert COVID. Here we are today. But I must say, we kept rocking and rolling even through COVID, and people were buying because they were home, and they tried out so many new authors. I'm still getting emails and texts about, oh my gosh, that was so great. They're giving me feedback on particular genres that they want to see. So thank you from me to the fans of Legacy Book Bar and the fans of these authors. Without you, we couldn't do this, but because of you, we are. So thank you so much. Your husband said Amazon was the devil. Okay. All right. All right, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, offline.
We'll talk about that. So again, 716 series can be purchased online at www.legacybookbar.com. You can also meet me at the pop-up tomorrow morning at White Marsh Mall. Next week, episode 3 of Legacy Book Bar Sip and Chat, I will have Indy Jones with us, and she is an author of paranormal sci-fi fantasy. If you are a fan and you have actually been through my website, you will notice that there are several books under the paranormal sci-fi genre, and you will notice that Majority of them are written by Indy Jones. She is a USA Today best-selling author, African-American female, and she is right here in Baltimore. So for those local fans of hers and as well as Legacy Book Bar, and you want to support, you want to stay tuned for episode 3 of next week. This is one of her books, A Queen's Pride. This came out June of this year. I must say, this book had me so emotional. I had to call her at 11 o'clock at night because my feelings was real hurt. It's not for the faint of heart, and Lion King ain't got nothing on this story. So you're going to want to purchase A Queen's Pride from Legacy Book Bar, or come see me at the pop-up tomorrow. Also want to let everyone know that October will be a very fun month for Legacy Book Bar, because I will be hosting 2 book clubs in October instead of the 1. We will be talking to Gerald DeAndre, who was on the called the episode in the chat earlier today. We'll be talking about his book, Alabama Sunrise. So you want to stay tuned to that one. That's going to be very fun. You can get that on the website, or you can come and get it early at the pop-up. And that book club is October 24th from 12 to 3. But then for all of my fans that love a good horror story, you are going to want to tune in from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. on the 24th and hop on the call as we talk to Ren Thompson and her book, Dead Heat. So you're going to want to make sure that you are ready and prepared for all of those book clubs I just mentioned. Again, Legacy Book Bar is ever changing. New stock is coming in almost weekly. I do pop-ups twice a month. And every Friday night, these episode podcasts are coming your way. So you want to stay tuned. And what a great way to meet a new author. So thank you so much for everyone for tuning in tonight to Legacy Book Bar Sip and Chat, episode 2 with author A.A. Lewis of the 716 series. Arthur Lewis, thank you so much for joining our call. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. If you need me, you know how to reach me, www.legacybookbar.com or legacybookbar@gmail.com. You guys have a great night and enjoy your weekend.
Bye, everyone. Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.